So you want to play the Circle of Stars Druid, but what will your character look like? You can go the regular starry sky flavor, but what if you changed it up? What if instead of stars you took the forms of ghostly possessions, or channeled the runic magic of giants? Let's map out some new ideas to make your next druid character truly unique. After all, the sky is never the limit. Hello Acolytes, welcome to the Cleric Corner. My name is Riker, and here we talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons, tapping into our higher powers to create worlds more unique and stories more impactful. Now, in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Star Druids are stargazers that harness the power of heavenly bodies and constellations. You have a star chart as a spellcasting focus that allows you to cast spells like Guidance and Guiding Bolt. Then, as a use for your wild shape, you can access the power of certain constellations, either giving you a ranged spell attack with the Archer, extra healing power as the Chalice, and advantage on concentration checks in your dragon form. You then get a Wheel and Woe feature that either gives you a boon to attack rolls, saving throws, or ability checks, or gives the enemy a bane to those checks, all depending on what your omen roll is that morning. As you level up, your star forms get strengthened, including a flying speed in your dragon form, and you can change between them on every turn. Then lastly, you are resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage while in your form. A constant powerhouse from level 1 to 20. Now, a Druid of the Stars is already a unique and evocative flavor for an otherwise plant-like Druid. But now that we know what the mechanics are, how else can we reflavor and subvert it to see what other story possibilities are available? So keeping with the same mechanics, let's explore 10 alternate character concepts to stretch your creative thinking. First up is actually one that I played relatively recently in a one-shot, the Ghost. When you think of different forms your druid can turn into, it's fun to think of other creatures and phenomena that they can tap into to create similar results. So instead of constellations, we look at the ethereal undead. Your starry map is instead a gravesite roster, keeping track of persons who have not passed on, you getting to tap into these undead via symbiotic possession. Your archer form is instead a poltergeist, your chalice a ghost or starlight apparition, and your dragon is a banshee, or whatever other creature you let possess you. My druid that I played let a dragon ghost possess them for a draconic transformation spell. Your Wheel and Woe abilities could be those spirits influencing those you choose, and the fly speed and resistance to physical damage is self-explanatory as you go somewhat ethereal. But you can also tap into living creatures as well with the animal. Either having a menagerie of spirit animals or a type of genetic lycanthropy, your forms could be a monkey flinging radiant poop, an elephant showering healing water from their trunk, and an intelligent crow giving you a bonus to concentration and a fly speed. Instead of a star map, you have a bestiary or encyclopedia. Your Wheel and Woe is animal instincts, and your hide thickens at like a rhino at later levels. Have a specific animal for each form you take, or switch it up on how you feel. As long as the mechanics work the same, it shouldn't matter. But this being closer to the classic nature of the druid, what if we just restore the classic plant-like tropes of the class? With the plant, we like the mechanics of the subclass, but we change the starry map into a herbarium, or a book of plants. As for your ranged radiant attacks, the recent Spelljammer book gave us Artuks, which are plant creatures that shoot radiant pellets. Your druid can do the same. Now, the Stars Druid is perfect for any Spelljammer campaign with its starry nature, but Artuks don't need to be from a Spelljammer in your world. Wheel and Woe could be reading tea leaves, and even at later levels you might adopt Barkskin towards you and a large helicopter leaf to keep you flying. But while we're at it, let's explore some other nature-based magics that you can take your forms from. The first being the weather. A druid that uses a magical barometer to prepare for weather and gain advantage against their foes. There are many factors in the ozone that can influence a battle. Your archer could be a static charge from a storm, your chalice could be a sunny day, and your dragon could be a high wind that can eventually lift you. At later levels, you can take on more of a cloudy form to gain resistance to physical damage. And actually, speaking of, what if your forms were stratus, cumulus, or cumulonimbus clouds, having a domain of that entire layer of the world? But what if your druid, being of nature, could tap into every layer of the world? Nature in every form, both above and below the crust of the earth. Or like they could tap into the stars, what if they could tap into the planet or planets themselves? With the planet, we find a druid that has a magical seismograph to predict omens, and their forms include an atmospheric form, a surface form, and a planetary core form. Have fun with what these forms look like, whether it be the clear blue skies and the iron core of the earth, or the stormy atmosphere and metallic hydrogen core of planets like Jupiter. But speaking of all this planetary influence, what if your character was influenced by a black hole, a nebula, a wormhole, or space-time itself? I want to help you all be more creative and provide you with resources to easily stretch your mind and flavor your characters. So if you haven't already, check out our latest issue of Higher Powers magazine, where we went over all things space and Spelljammer to do just that, going over all elements of space to power your characters or populate your campaigns. Free for Patreon subscribers, or you can find them on my website, all linked below. Hope it helps. But let's get away from nature already. Let's get a little more crazy with these starry druid reflavors. In fact, let's give them a little taste of every other class. With the Abserd, you can switch between arcane, druidic, and divine focuses. Abserd being a fun concept coined by Puffin Forrest of a character that multiclass in every class. Except in this reflavor, no multiclassing is necessary. Your archer form is quite literally you having learned a skill from the ranger class, your chalice is your clerical form, and your dragon would be your wizard form. Even your wheel and woe could now work like bardic inspiration, and your resistance to physical damage is a skill that you took from a barbarian. You are a menagerie of skills and abilities either took from your party members or purposefully trained in attempt to avoid the hassle of multiclassing. Or you are channeling past adventurers that give you these boons, those that have stayed behind to help you accomplish what they could not. But let's dive into the flavor of a clerical druid a bit more. With the Devoted, you channel your magic not from one, not two, but 3 different gods. Your archery form is channeling boons from the god of archery, Uller, or Apollo. Your chalice form channels the god of healing, Pelor, and then your dragon form channels boons from Mistra, the god of magic. Each of them either having rewarded you from past actions or invested in you for your current goal. Or you have time to worship and be a cleric of each individual, praying for your weals and woes. Your star charts are, of course, scripture from each god, but of course they don't need to be those 3 specific gods. Choose from yourself which gods to pull from, even evil ones. Another fun class to pull from is the Artificer, so with the Apparatus, you either use magic stored in items or switch between different contraptions that you choose. I could even see like a telescopic kaleidoscope that as you turn the dial, runes light up and they spell out incantations and effects. Telescopic, kind of keeping the starry aesthetic, of course. Maybe even having a construct made of a living telescope with one eye extending outwards and an eyepiece that someone could look through at the back of their head. I don't know, that would just be really fun to me. But your star maps are blueprints and you add on different technical pieces that give you the ability to fly or defend yourself. But speaking of runes, I would be remiss to dismiss rune magic, especially from giants. With the Rune Druid, your magic comes a lot like the Rune Knight Fighter. Runes from giants that give you access to the magic of the Ordning. Throw radiant rocks like a hill giant, and scribe healing runes into crystals to boost your healing. Your flight could come from storm giant runes, or resistance from physical damage from a stone giant rune. You can flavor all of your spells in a similar way as well. We have not yet had a Circle of Giants Druid, though I actually should work on something like that soon. That'd be pretty cool. But this does well for flavor in the meantime. As a flavor tip, it is often useful to go through different classes and monsters to see how your abilities can relate to them. Does it make sense to source your magic from them? And yet another influence would be the many planes of existence. So let's talk about the court. Taking a lot of its flavor from the Circle of Dreams Druid, where you find magic from the Seelie and Unseelie courts of the Feywild. Weal and Woe coming quite literally from those 2 juxtaposed courts, or have access to both at once that gives you flight speed and better concentration. Your resistance to damage at higher levels reflavored as Fey Slipperiness. Your forms could even reflect some creatures like the Dryad, the Hag, or a Pixie. So what does your forms look like? Where do you draw your power? Let me know in the comments below. Shoot for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars. So let me know what other subclasses you would like to see and check out other subclasses I've done in the full playlist here. But in the meantime, go out there and spread the good word of D&D and make the world a better place, both on and off the table. See you in the next one.